Well, here I am back again. Today's job, I've painted one of the upper wings. I've painted both of the upper ailerons. So today's job is to install not only the aileron on the wing, but also some of the detail parts as well. So let's just have a look first of all what we're going to try and achieve. Okay, here's the wing. Right here. The tip hasn't been installed yet, and I will install that in the coming, few weeks, and not only install it but also paint it. But for now, the wing is painted, and we need to install the aileron between this pivot bolt and one up the other end there. This one. This access panel is so that I can gain access to that bolt. I didn't cut this hand hole out all the way because all I need is a little tiny hole like that to get my spanner in. I can put my spanner in and put it on that bolt. That's all I need. There's no need to cut a great big hole. And there's I have a plug that'll go in that hole, a grommet, if you like, not one of these horrible rubber ones that are really cheap and nasty, but I've got a proper one. This end is pretty much the same as the other end. There's the access through the tip, so the access to this bolt, so that I can either hold the bolt or turn it and put the nut on inside the aileron, which, it's a bit of, rubbing your belly and patting your head and that sort of thing. But anyway, it can be done. Now, the earlier Renegades, and if you have an earlier Renegade or you're building an earlier Renegade, they had a different method. I'll show you this first. This is what the end rib on the upper ailerons anyway, what it looks like. It's got a shouldered bush here. That bolt I just showed you goes through there. There's an access hole on the side, right here, which you go down, and with the aid of modern microsurgery, you manage to get that nut on the back of this bushing. Okay, and you can access the head of the bolt, and you can also access the nut. Not very well, because my finger only just fits in there, so there's not a whole lot of space left over. All right, and the other end is exactly the same as this end, just the opposite. Okay, look at the drawing here. It calls out for a riv nut. A riv nut? What the hell's a riv nut? Okay, well, a riv nut is sort of a cross between a nut and a rivet. This is one here. This is the device for installing it, and this is our end rib on that aileron. This riv nut went in there like this. You pull it up. I'll put it this way so you can see it. This part, up to about there, from about there up, this way, is the nut part. It's actually threaded. There it is. You can see the threaded part of this black mandrel. And from about there down, it's a top rivet. So we can put it in, and we can pull it up just like a rivet. I'm going to try and show you this end. And what it does, we'd insert the nut where we want it, and just like, where are we? Right there. And just like a pair of pop rivet pliers, we'd pull it up, and I'm trying to get it where you can see the rivet there. And as we pull it up, see how it spreads out around here so it won't fall back out again. I need to pull it up a little bit further. And then we adjust the tool so that if we want to put 10 of these in, all 10 are going to be exactly the same. A little bit more. And there we go. That's fairly reasonable. Then we take the tool off. See how it's squashed down there? It won't fall out. The Renegade called for a total of 1 of these, and it's purely for the elevator stop. I think I used that, plus I used, I don't know, maybe 6 others. Their issue, the main issue with them, is they've got this, let's see, this silly little knurled part here, which you may or may not be able to see. Which stops the actual nut from turning when you put a bolt or a screw in it and do it up. That little knurled piece stops this from going around. Now, what I did when I installed mine was I installed them with an epoxy, so the epoxy's holding them as well. There's epoxy holding under here, and there's also epoxy holding under that the piece that spread out and stopped it from falling out. So that's their downfall, is they do tend to, especially if you tighten the bolt up that goes into them, you tighten it up a lot, they will tend to start turning in the piece, and that's bad. But this is how the early one, this was the pivot point for the aileron on the early Renegades. Nowadays, they use what I've got there, which is a shouldered bush, which is a much better situation, in my opinion. Let's go and see if we can't fit this. See if we can't fit this up. Here, right there, and the one right there. I'm trying to install that in the aileron. I'll take these couple of tools out of the way. I'm going to need them shortly. Let's grab the aileron. Alrighty. I have the aileron ready to install. These little stainless steel bushes go, they go on the bolt that we're trying to install, yeah, and they are the bearing point. Get this back out here somewhere where you can see it. They are the bearing here on this shouldered bush. Okay, so these will be, eventually they'll be cinched up tight between the bolt that we're trying to install. The aileron will be free to go wherever it wants to, so long as it's an up and down aileron type movement. It can't move left because the stop is on the other end of the wing. It can't move right because there's a stop on this end of the wing. The pieces that it installs onto are fixed, seriously fixed, so it can't go left and right. It can only go up and down, and it actually, this little stainless steel piece is captured. He can't rotate, so the aileron has to rotate on him. Yeah, if that makes sense. Let's put it together and see if we can make sense of it anyway. I'll bring you around. So I can probably slip this stainless steel bit on now. Yep. I'm going to try and install just this end of the aileron The other end will be flapping around wherever it feels like, which is okay for now. But obviously I have to fix that sooner rather than later. There it is on the bolt. On the bolt. Almost on that little stainless steel bush. Like it's sort of got to go in square. Well, there we go. I think that was in. Oh, look at that. That was superb. Now we've got to do is get the other end in. Yeah, this end. This end up here. So we get our little bush. This will be a little bit more difficult. No, we can't put our bush in there yet. Take our bolt right back. Put the bush in this part, like that. Bring it down. Somewhere. Almost. Yeah, beautiful. Slide the bolt in. Try and retrieve the little stainless steel bit. Go right in there. So anyway, the aileron will now pivot where it's meant to. All we've got to do is put the bolt, put the nuts, the castellated nuts, by the way. The castellated nuts on the end of that, on the end of those two bolts that we just put in, and then put a split pin in after we torque it up. What could possibly go wrong? I need a tool. All right, you're not going to be able to see it very well. I'll bring you over. Maybe you can see the nut down in that hole. There it is. It's actually started. Turning it's a bit of a problem. This ratchet here won't turn at all, but at least it's holding on to the bolt. This little ratchet, he's different. He's not your normal conventional ratchet with a pawl. It virtually has a sprag clutch. So let's see if we can't get a decent look at him. But there's virtually no spring back. As soon as you move the handle a little bit at all, there's no click click like a ratchet, and then it pulls. As soon as it goes backwards at all, it grabs in a different spot. It's a brilliant little tool. It's close quarter ratchet, I think they call it, but it's not really a ratchet mechanism. It's a sprag clutch type mechanism which has no backlash. It just drives immediately. Great thing. I'll show you how that applies here. We can slip it on that nut easy enough. I use my phone to see where the nut is. Like that. And then we can work it this much. Of course I have to hold the ratchet as well and the phone. But if I hold the ratchet where it is, I can then go backwards, and that's working the nut. Yeah, that nut is actually threading on. Incredible, isn't it? So you need one of these. It's just a million backwards and forwards to get it to where it needs to be, but at least it's going to where it needs to be. I'm really not looking forward to the microsurgery part where I get to put the split pin in. That's going to be great fun. But that's what aviation's about, having fun like this. Can you tell I'm having fun? Looks like it, doesn't it? Another 3,000 of those to go, we should have it. Let's have a look if make sure we're actually going where we thought we were going. And yeah, the nut's almost on. It's pretty well lined up. But I'm gonna call it there. I'll come back to this tomorrow. This is the outboard end of the of this aileron. The bolts in, everything's assembled except the nut and the split pin. The nut's painted up with the washer on it. That's okay. I can leave them together for now. Matter of fact, that'll work in our favour. I've taken the wingtip back off again just to make it a little bit easier to put this nut on. I'll put it on and torque it up. But while we're on the subject of this hinge, I need to lubricate the hinge. What I use, my general go-to lubrication is this one. It's actually for a bicycle chain. And this is the wet weather version. There's a dry weather version as well. So I use the wet weather one. It's not going to wash off. It doesn't go gluggy. It works pretty well. It's expensive. There's 4 ounces for $20. That's pretty dear for oil. Whereas, your 3-in-1 oil might cost you $3. However, I've had this for more than 5 years, and I would imagine that it's still more than half full. It's so you don't use very much. You really don't. I use it in a syringe. Yeah, wherever it is. This syringe, so I can put it exactly where I want and only the amount that I want. I don't have to squirt it from a distance and try and put oil all over the place. But for instance, I want to lubricate. I don't know whether you can see this or not. I'm gonna record it and then see later whether or not you can see anything. I'll put a little tiny bit of oil on the bush, on the stainless steel bush that we talked about earlier, and then I'll slide it into the brass bush that's in the end of the aileron. Okay, now I don't know whether you saw that or not. Maybe you did, hopefully you did. But that was the tiny little bit of oil. And I can't tell anything right there. But anyway, I'll put this nut on. Okay, well that's the nut started. Yep, that's the nut started. See why I'm doing this with the wingtip off? It'd be 3 grades more difficult to do it with the wingtip on. Okie dokie, that's beautiful. Oh, that is good. No, that is beautiful. So that's now firm. Still needs to be tightened to the 50 to 70 inch-pounds for a 1/4 inch bolt. And this one here, let's have a look at this one. I can't remember where I left it last night. Yeah, this one's not done up properly yet. There's I don't know whether you can see that, there's a little bit of end float on the aileron, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. Yeah. And obviously you need some end float. If you didn't have end float, if you managed to shim it and take all the end float out, this aeroplane's capable of pulling something like 10 plus 10 minus 6 G's, I think is what it's rated to. Yeah, you start pulling the big G's like that, even though I don't intend to, but somebody may in the future. Yeah, if you start pulling big G's out of this little aeroplane, which it's capable, it is capable of that, then you're going to get some wing distortion. And if you've shimmed all the slack out of your aileron, then guess what? You're going to wind up in 10 grades of strife when you've got an aileron that's seized and won't turn while you're pulling a 10 Gs. Not that I expect anybody to ever pull 10 Gs in this aeroplane, it's just not going to happen. But the aeroplane can cope with that sort of high G loading. Even 2 or 3 or 4 Gs, which you can do in aerobatics, no problem. You'll pull that without any issues at all. You're still going to get wing distortion, and to lock an aileron up because you've shimmed all the slack out of it, oh, that'd probably be a bad thing. Alrighty, time for a very quick update. I've put the bolts and washers and all the rest of the hardware into the aileron attach points. The ailerons move freely. They've got a little bit of end float, yeah, which is no more than a couple of millimetres. And like I explained before, we need that end float. You start pulling big G on the wings, they're going to distort. And the last thing you want is for no end float, the wings distort a little bit, and next thing you've got no ailerons. This hole, if you saw any of the way back early videos, there was only ever going to be a small hole in there, and I'm going to put something like this grommet in that hole, a blanking grommet, and that will go like that. Now whether I paint it, I probably will try and paint it, but whether the paint actually sticks to it or not's another story. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I still need to put the split pins in. The split pin holes are lined up and the bolts are tensioned as best I can get them, but I will put the split pins in and open them up and set them. Moving right along, we saw this. Let's have a bit of a closer look. This cover plate has been installed, and I like it. I like the look of it. It seems like it's going to stay where I put it. If I find that it doesn't stay put properly, then I'll put one of the other varieties in there. We'll go around the front and have a look at that panel. Yeah, this I've taken the wingtip off. I guess I won't put it back on. The wingtip will be painted next. Well, at least to be painted with primer, with that white coloured primer. And then it'll be installed and painted on the... Well, it'll be installed with proper pop rivets. And then the pop rivets and the wingtip will be painted the same colour as the rest of the wing. But it looks reasonable. I've probably told you this before, but I'm not a painter. I'm really not. I've only ever painted one big thing in my life before, and that was my RV6. That was 25 years ago. So don't expect me to do miracles with the paint job. That's just never going to happen. I'm not a painter. This was always going to be a problem. I put this panel on, and obviously when I first made the panel, which was a couple of years ago, it fitted perfectly. But since I put the fabric on, stretched the fabric and painted it, it no longer fits properly. So I'm going to have to relieve some of these holes a little tiny bit, half a millimetre or something like that, so that it actually sits down properly. But then it'll have new screws in it. These are old screws that I use for assembly work, but it will have new ones, and it will sit down better than what it is now. But yeah, that's somewhere in the future. We'll look at that. But that's the bottom of the upper wing, of one of the upper wings anyway. I'll throw those split pins in after lunch, and then we'll continue on with some other job. I've got one more thing to show you. All right, this is the last piece of this puzzle. This is one of the interplane struts. It will attach roughly here somewhere. It attaches here at the rear main spar, attaches up there on the front main spar, and but that's the contrast of colours. These are the colours that the aeroplane will eventually be painted in. Getting there pretty good. The lower side of this upper wing is is pretty much complete. I think the upper side is complete also. It's just, well, the fuel vent and the fuel cap is about all that's on the upper side. It doesn't have all that much go. So, yeah, but that's what it'll look like in the actual colours. This is what we were just working with. This is the end rib, or I think they call it something else, but it's basically the end rib. This is attached to the rear spar. You've got a bolt. You've got some washers that really control the amount of end float on the aileron. I put, I think, maybe one thick one and one thin one or something on each end. I've put 1 or 1.5 washers. You've got this little stainless steel bush which bears on this shouldered bush. It's riveted into this end rib, and then a nut and a washer and a split pin go on from the other side. Okay, which is, I've done all that. It's all fine, and yeah, I've just got some ramblings on there about what size these pieces are, because they don't give you the dimensions to make them. You can pause it and try and zoom in if you like. But anyway, that's it. I'll do one last swing around and show you what we've got here. This is the bottom of the upper wing, don't forget. So we've got some, there's the fuel line out. We've got one of the cabane strut attach points here, which obviously I can cut it more out if I need to, but I only took enough, just barely enough to get by. And I've done that with pretty much everything. I've kept my clearances fairly tight. That's the rear attach point, the rear cabane attach point to the upper wing. Over here next to my little trusty spray clutch socket and ratchet, there's the connection point for the aileron, inboard aileron hinge point. Over here I've got the only reason for this cover, in fact, let's go over and have a look at that. This is the cover I'm talking about. The only reason for this cover is so that I can reach in and get to the head of this bolt that will come out through there. It's only a small 1032 bolt that will come out there and attach the interplane strut, the rear attach point for the interplane strut. There'll also be a cable that comes off here down to the fuselage as well. That other point, which is right about there, that little one, is for the front attach point of that interplane strut. So yeah, but this, unfortunately I had to put this purely so I could get at that bolt head. I guess I could have put it over here or something like that, but I didn't. That's where I chose to put it. It worked for me, for whatever reason that sounded good at the time. The aileron, like I say, is on. It moves perfectly. Absolutely no graunching or binding or anything anywhere, and it moves extremely freely. That little black grommet is the access to the nut and split pin that attaches the aileron. Moving right over this end, there should be another one right there. That's don't look at that one, it doesn't count if you can see it. You probably couldn't see it anyway. This is the outboard attach point. Yeah, so I'm extremely happy with that. I'm not quite so happy with this panel in the front. It just needs to have the holes relieved a little bit. The holes need to be another, I don't know, 0.5 millimetre or whatever bigger, and then that panel will sit down nice and neat. It used to sit down nice and neat until I put the fabric on and shrunk it, and that pulled the ribs out of alignment. Now it doesn't fit very well anymore. It's not tight right now, and I don't want to tighten. I don't want to damage the paintwork. But I will have to make those holes slightly larger, whether I do that with a next size drill or whether I just try and file them a little bit. I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But that's it. Like I say, this will be packed up now. The wingtip will come with me back to the other hangar, and we'll work on that and start painting it. But no, I'm very happy indeed how this turned out. Very, very happy indeed. Like there's no real work to do no real work that I can do right now on the top surface of this wing. It's the fuel cap is the only thing. It's installed. It's sitting there. It's not installed properly, and it doesn't have, sealer and so on to stop fuel from splashing out. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. It'll cop that probably on absolute final assembly. But anyway, thanks for watching, and like always, I don't know when I'll release this video. I'll probably release it in maybe next Friday. It's which is 3 or 4 days away. Anyway, take care, and I'll catch up with you next time.